Grooming shears. How to sharpen grooming shears. When I want to know questions about anything to do with sharpening for groomers, Jeff Andrews is the person I ask. You're going to enjoy hearing what Jeff has to say about sharpening grooming shears. Jeff began as a groomer, so he knows that side of the business. Now he has one of the largest mail-order sharpening businesses in the country for sharpening for groomers, both clipper blades and shears, as well as clipper repair. So let's hear from Jeff. I'm glad he joined us for our 2020 Sharpeners Jam this year.
Okay, this is Jeff with Untitled Sharpening. This is a video class of my grooming shear presentation. Because of the COVID virus, we're going to do everything by video. And today we're just going to work with a flat hone. I have a twice as sharp that I use to take back tips and maybe cut down bumpers. That's about all I use it for. I use two systems here. I use one to sharpen, I use one to polish. So first thing I'm going to do is something easy. This is a bevel straight shear, and whenever you get a shear from your customer, you're probably going inside. You want to look at the shear and you want to adjust it first. They teach you in sharpening school to do the ride line first, but forget a lot of stuff that you learned there, because grooming tools are a whole different ballgame. What we're going to do is we're going to adjust these shears first. Now this shear here, I already adjusted it, but a lot of times from sharpening over the years, and I'll show you a bad thing to do here, they don't, from being dropped or constant sharpening, the tips won't close. And that little bit of tip that's laying open right there, that'll snag the hair, and that will really make a groomer mad, because there's speed scissoring. So you get your handle bender like this, and if you can bend the handles to close this up some, that'd be great. If you can't bend the handles, you work on the bumper. And if you can't close it up by working on the bumper, and it's still a part like this, you might have to take tips back. That's a whole different thing, but we'll get into that some other time. But to do a beveled shear, it's pretty simple. You don't have to take them apart. A lot of you do. Put them in your clamp, but I'm a freehander. I used to work with a clamp all the time, and then when I got into so many curved shears, I found that the clamp was beveling the tips too much on these convex shears, and I'll show you why. But this is pretty simple. Whenever you do any shear, you put it down on the disc and you keep it there. You don't pull it towards you. See how I'm working that down right to the tip, and I've got a burr that whole length there. Don't do this. Don't do this, and I'll tell you why. Because when you do this, you're naturally going to pick the rear of this shear up, and you're going to start rounding out the tips. And that's what causes a lot of tips not to close, because they round it out. There's not enough metal there to close at the tips. And so I get a lot of this stuff in here where I got to fix a lot of these shears that come in here. Same thing with the other side. I'm holding it right down on there, and I've got a burr. Well, I didn't get a burr all the way to the tip. There we go. I take the burr off with a fuzzy stick. And I take an Arkansas stone. Now the red stone works good, but Arkansas stone cuts a lot better. And that burr comes right off there. And I go over with the fuzzy stick again to make sure the residual burr is gone. Spread it apart. I test on hair, and because I want to make sure that blade cuts from one end to the other. Now I'll tell you this from grooming for 35 years plus, a groomer is not going to use the back part of this shear because they can't open and close it like this. The muscles in their hand all tighten up. They'll use about 2/3 of it. So you have to make sure that one, it cuts all the way to the tips, because they use the tips more than the rear of the scissor, and it opens and closes smoothly. That's the only two things you got to worry about. So cuts really nice. Now you're using toilet paper. The reason I don't use toilet paper is for two reasons. Number one, I haven't, in 35 years of grooming, I haven't groomed a roll of toilet paper. And secondly, I have tested shears on toilet paper and they cut, and I go out using the hair and they snag. So that's something you got to think about. And wet toilet paper is probably worse because groomers don't cut anything wet. They don't slide cut. They don't do anything. The coat's got to be dry. Otherwise, you're going to have problems scissoring. And we'll get into that at some other time too. So that's, and usually when I get several groomers mailing me their stuff, I write on the inside of the shear what it was, because I charge two different prices. I charge one price for a convex shear and I charge one price for a beveled shear. I call it industrial edge. And I know you'll probably all charge the same price for every shear, but I give them a break. I'm a groomer. So I'll write inside, and once they get their shear back and they look at what they have to pay, I want them to know that shear that they're paying a lower price for is their shear, and a higher price is their shear. So I write convex and I'll write bevel on the inside of the shear. Same thing with a curved shear. And you're asking yourself, well, how do I know what angle that is? I've been sharpening shears for 25 years, and my hand knows what an angle is. I sharpen beveled shears at 30 to 35 degrees. You don't want to go 45, because the sharper it is, the duller it'll get quicker, because dog hair has 50 times the silica that your hair does, especially around the feet. So you're actually cutting almost like cable stuff. So actually 30 to 35 degrees, I've found in my own shop by sharpening my own stuff, that it lasts a lot longer than lower, and it lasts a lot longer than higher. So we're gonna do the same thing. Even though it's a curved shear, you can see that the tip is off the plate. We're gonna do the same thing. We're not gonna pull it towards us. We're gonna lay it down. And we're sharpening all the way to the tip. Do the same thing with the other side. If you have a habit of pulling the shear towards you might want to get out of that habit, because you're going to start rounding these tips off, and then you're going to, if you're the only one going to be sharpening this stuff, it'll bite you in the butt later on. Same thing, take the fuzzy stick, get the burr off. Take my Arkansas stone. Once you get an Arkansas stone, you can actually feel it cut, and you'll probably never go back to any of those other stones you've been using. Same thing. I want to make sure that these things open and close and cut smooth. That cuts almost like a convex shear. It's that sharp. Don't buff them. Don't buff a bevel edge. Just keep that edge nice and sharp, nice and crisp. That's the idea of the bevel edge. It's a workhorse. When these things cut, they compress the hair when they cut. They're cutting down on the hair. Convex shears chop the hair. It's like a guillotine. So once these things start dulling out, they'll start pushing the hair, and corrugation will not help it. These shears here I'd never adjusted before, but you can see I'm barely coming together when they're closed. So I'll take my scissor handle bender and I'll bend it, so there we are. That's perfect right there. When groomers are speed cutting, a lot of times they don't close all the way. So if even though it is kind of closed before, if it's not closing when they're speed scissoring like this, it'll snag, and the first person they're going to call is you. Thinners and chunkers. I like to have, and this is what inspection does first. You can see by the teeth here, it's just barely inside. That might work good for human hair, but for dog hair, we want those teeth to be about halfway down that cutting blade. Why? Because dog hair has 30 times more silica, 30 to 50 times more silica in it, and it needs to be brought down on that cutting blade a lot further to cut, especially around faces and skirts on some terrier breeds and working class breeds. The hair's a lot tougher. So there we are. I think it's adjusted. We got a good bumper on it. Everything looks good. The problem is this person here bevel this thinner. See the bevel edge on it? And that's no good. They beveled the edge and they never even did a ride line on it. So we're going to repair this. It's not going to be perfect, but these are grooming shears. Your groomer probably wants perfect, but this is a $40 thinner. I'm still going to use 500 grit paper. And I'm going to start out at 30 degrees. I'm going to look and make sure I got it all the way to the tip. Sure I do. Then I'm going to do this little roll here that I don't particularly like, but sometimes it helps me get the convexing a little more even on the whole blade. There we go. I got blue rouge on this. The nice thing about freehanding is if you feel a little resistance down there, you can always go downstream. You know, here's the rotation this way. It's not pulling it out of my hand. That's pretty nice. Got plenty of burr on it. See the burr here? So I consider that done. For convexing, I use leather to take the burr off. It's a lot more. I learned that from Louis Guin. It takes that burr right off of there. This is a 1500 stone. And the reason I use a 1500 is because all these ride lines, they look like a picket fence. Because groomers don't set shears down. They get about this far off the table and they drop them. And if it's open at all, you're going to get little nicks all around all along that ride line. You'll see it on your longer shears. But you know, these are very inexpensive thinners. I'm not pressing down on there. I'm just doing this until I feel it's smoothing out. I got a good ride line on it. Now sometimes you'll see that you see some imperfections here, but I wouldn't worry about that on this jade right here, because I'll tell you what, if you want to spend a lot of time on a stone with this, you're taking metal off of here, you're also taking metal off of other places. The thing you want to accomplish is if it cuts on the whole blade and opens and closes smoothly. That's it. When you get into the higher price shears like Sensei's and high dollar Kenchis and high dollar shark fins, and you know, these higher dollar shears, they're machined a little bit better. You don't have these problems. When you're spending $50, $60 for a shear and they're punched out there in China, you're going to get about anything. You know, I wouldn't stick a lot of time in them. Your main thing is to just make sure they open and close smoothly and they cut the whole blade, and you'll be fine. How do I adjust tension? I adjust tension by using them. I've been grooming 39 years this year. I know how shears are supposed to cut. I'm using H42 as a lubricant. And always lube the shears first. Thinners and chunkers, you should hear them. Can you hear that? You want to hear them scrape a little bit. Now I use a thinner. Look at that. I use a thinner one way, and these girls today and these groomers today are taught to use use thinners a different way. What they do is they grab like this and then they pull out. But sometimes that's not good, because if you're working on faces and ears and heads, you want it to feather. So that feathers it. Also turn the shear upside down will take less hair off. You see how it takes less hair off? Now you notice when you buy shears, you have the cutting blade coming down on the teeth on some, and it's this way on other shears. There's a reason for that. This actually takes off less hair, and you can feather with this. This here is just a straight thinner. You know, go like that and pull out. Just depends on the breed. A lot of breeds, small dogs, Lhasas, Shih Tzus, Malteses, Yorkies, you can do that close and pull. But terrier breeds, working class breeds, no, you gotta do what I was doing before, just like this to thin them out. That's the thinner. Here's a convex curve shear. Here's where people have a lot of problems. Is they want to use the clamp. The clamp's okay, but that's where the problems are. If you're experienced at twisting, you'll get by with that. But you know, your first time sharpeners that run across shears, curve shears, and they really don't know how to handle them. I'll show you why the clamp is bad. And when you're using your clamp, this is where it is on your machine. And a lot of you are going like this and pulling back on it to try to get this tip down. Well, when you're doing that, what you're doing is you're over beveling the tip. You're making this bevel wider here. So what I'm doing is I'm holding it freehand at about 30-degree angle, and I'm walking it down and just touching it. And you can't do that with a clamp. A lot of your better sharpeners in the United States, and I know a lot of them, they're all freehanders. And I myself, I do 30, 40 shears a day. And that clamp slows me down. That's why I have two machines. I sharpen, buff, right? Just like that. I'm not switching a lot of plates. So let's do this. That's the outside curve. Let's do the inside curve first. And same thing. This is even worse with a clamp. But all we're doing is trying to get a burr on there. We're going to use the first 3/4 of an inch. You have to pull this. There it is. You've got a nice little 30-degree bevel all along that blade. Now every convex edge starts with a bevel. So we'll put one right next to it. There we are. And we're going to finish this shear off with the Blue Rouge. The Blue Rouge is some really good stuff. It'll actually roll that edge over. Look at that. It's a perfect convex edge. Didn't take long at all. That's why I don't use a clamp. I have the time, but you just work your butt off putting something in and out of a clamp. I've been doing this for so many years that there we go. Same thing. You can move it downstream if you think it's pulling on your hand. In my regular in-person classes, I've had people go from using the clamp to actually freehanding because they've seen how easy it was for me to do it. They actually told me, "You make it look so simple, but it's what I'm doing, and you're probably working your butt off trying to do it." Salon shears are different, a whole different ballgame. Now, I like. There's a couple ways of doing the inside. Remember on convex shears, I'm using leather. This is a great thing. You might want to pick up. You can go to any kind of a leather store. You can go to Hobby Lobby and they sell little pieces of leather. Now the inside curve, this is a great machine for a couple reasons. I don't use the clamp because all I'm doing is shining up that ride line. Okay, and here I put a nice ride line on there. Now what this machine is really nice for is if this shear was dropped at one time and there's a big old nick in there, and you'll notice that the inside of some of these grooming shears, you can just count the many times it was dropped and how many nicks are in it. Remember, they get about this far off the table and they drop it. Well, what's nice about this is if you really got something that's messed up, can actually put the clamp together and you can actually really work that ride line with it, and it'll be square. You ain't got to worry about not getting it off kilter and putting more ride on one side of the blade, one part of the blade than the other. You can actually work that nick out with this. That's what's nice about this machine. And I've used it a lot on chunkers, curve chunkers. Now you can also get one of these off of Amazon. It works just as well, you know. But I like this machine too. This I use in my mobile. I do have a mobile unit, and this is what I use in there. But that's the inside ride. The outside ride, same as you use regular shears. You use the stone. Work the pivot a little bit, and then we'll start at the top and walk it down. Got a nice ride on there. I hope you can see that. I don't mark these, but if this is the same order, different order. I mark the shears on the inside what they are when I run across people that don't know. Well, most groomers, most people don't know what edges on the shear. You don't believe me? Ask them. They'll say sharp. But when we charge different prices for different edges, I want to make sure that person knows what they're paying for. Y'all can make it easy and charge the same price for everything, but I don't think it's fair. Cuts like a razor. Now, a convex shear has no compression. You shouldn't feel this cut. It don't. I hardly feel that cut at all. Once you start feeling these cut hair, they're dull. They're going to start to push hair. Don't put any corrugation on shears, not grooming shears. I'll tell you why. Because, especially a convex shear, it takes the cutting ability away from that blade. And you're putting it on the wrong blade anyway. You put it on this finger blade, and a groomer goes up and down a dog like this. And if I put corrugation on any grooming shear, it would be on a small shear that I'm doing faces with, because I'm putting it behind the hair and pulling towards me, and then I'm cutting. So if you put it on this blade here, and this blade starts to dull out, it'll actually push the hair, and then they'll be calling you because it's dull. I like two sharp blades. I've worked with corrugation on scissors for years, and I didn't like it. In fact, when I was in Mobile, I've had several sharpeners stop and ask me to help them, and they would put corrugation on shears, and I'd take them right down the street to my grooming shop, and I'd let them work on a dog. They'd have corrugation on that top blade, and they'd work a dog over, and they'd say, good, that cuts kind of hard, but it's cutting really nice. And then we'd go out to their van, and we'd take that corrugation off, and they'd come back in, the same dog, and they said, God, this is a whole different world here. This thing, I can't even feel it cut. That's the reason. That's why I don't use corrugation. In fact, on dog hair, it doesn't lay flat. So dog hair lays bunched up like that. It doesn't lay flat. So corrugation is going to do you anything. It's not a barber. You know, they're not being barbers. A bevel edge. If I was to corrugate a bevel edge, I wouldn't corrugate the actual edge. I'd corrugate this side of it, because that way the hair it'll hold hair on that. Chunkers, biggest thing. Everybody's going to chunkers. We have two different kinds here. We have a curved chunker and we have a straight chunker. The curved chunkers, first thing you want to do with these things is make sure they cut. Well, them cut. I can adjust that out after I sharpen it. If they're bent, you're going to spend all day making these cut because of the teeth. It's not a regular shear. So if they're bent, if they drop them on the ground or on their table, and you got a real good bend in there, these cheaper Chinese shears, once you bend it here, it's going to bend down here, and it's going to take you all day. I have written it right on my website. If these things are bent, we don't guarantee it, because I might send them back. This is a standard right here, and I've used curved chunkers in the shop, and I don't see any difference in using the curved ones or the straight ones, unless you're doing a small head, like a Bashan head or something small. Then you'll notice a difference with this. But going down the body of a, these are lawnmowers, going down the body of a doodle or something like that, you could probably get you know, that's probably what they're get the best use out of it. But I can do the same thing with these straight ones and get the same effect. I don't see what the curved ones will do. That's just my opinion. But same thing with a chunkers with a thinner. You want to make sure that tooth blade comes down halfway down that cutting blade. Otherwise, you're going to end up in problems. And by not lifting up, as I said before, by not lifting the end of this up, you don't want to turn this blade into a banana. Because once you get out here and it don't close and you can't adjust it up, what are you going to do? You know, the shear might not be worthless after that. Because you can only adjust the handle so much and that bumper so much. So we're gonna do the chunker here for you. These are actually good chunkers. We'll put our 500 back on there. I only use 500 and 1200. 30-degree angle on the teeth. You can see the burr coming up on them. We just want to make these sharp. If they're not sharp, don't serrate or corrugate these. When these teeth here are serrated or corrugated, it's a blender. It's not a chunker. We want these teeth to cut. I'm going to use the 500 on this too. Because most chunkers, when I get them, they're pretty rounded out. The edge is pretty rounded out. Because groomers are using these things for everything. I mean, this is... I don't know a groomer that doesn't have a pair of chunkers. Years ago, when I was grooming full time, I used before chunkers were available, I used pinking shears. Same effect. Pretty nice. Take the leather. I'm not going to clean my plate off. I'm just here for effect. You notice I'm doing this and then I'm bringing the tip out. I don't want to round these tips off. But I want to make sure that I've got enough blade on the stone to round out these ride lines, because the chunker is going to put little marks all along that ride line, and we're going to put them back in later on the way we adjust them. I just want to get the burr off of this. Chunkers take a little bit different adjustment. We want these to scrape, and we want to hear them scrape. Cuts like a razor. Now, the thing with chunkers is, see how my thumb is in there? That's too far. You just want the tip of it in there, because if your thumb is in there that far, you're going to have a tendency of squeezing these together, and if it squeezes together, it's going to catch right there. You need to have chunkers fitted, enough gel in there so just the very tip of your finger fits in there like that. Otherwise, you're going to get a call, and they're going to say, hey, these things just jammed about an inch from the pivot, and you'll ask, what did you do? Did you loosen them up? They don't want to loosen them up. We want them to scrape like that. They will loosen up on their own after a while. In fact, I could probably, put that a little bit more tighter. They cut perfect. That's it for chunkers. But animal hair's got a lot more silica than human hair, so you have to treat these shears as if they're going to dull out quicker. Now, I know you probably want them to dull out quicker so you can make more money, but you got to think of your customer. Corrugating shears will make them dull out quicker. Not setting them upright will dull out quicker. And don't sharpen a shear that's got a hypodermic tip to it. The tip is so fine that it looks like a hypodermic needle, and give it back to somebody because it's gonna fold the hair. Even though they gave it to you to sharpen, they don't know. A lot of these groomers today don't know anything about their equipment. They don't even know what edge is on there. So if they hand you a shear that you think is wore out, don't sharpen it because it's gonna fold. You'll be coming back there. And they'll call you on the phone. Look, this folds all the time when I go deep, and that's what you have to worry about when you're doing with toilet paper. That's why I don't test with toilet paper. Toilet paper just has surface cuts like that, but I want to go deep. See, I want to be able to go deep with shears, and toilet paper doesn't give me that because it can go. You can surface cut. If they're only going like a quarter inch down, maybe or maybe less than that. Testing it on toilet paper will give you a good realization with how that shear is going to cut. If they're going to take off a lot of bulk and you're testing on toilet paper and it cuts there, it might not cut deep. It might not cut when it goes deep. That's what you have to worry about. It'll fold. So that's it. That's all I can. I mean, there's a lot more to my class, but I'm not there. Usually my class is about 3 hours long, and I let you, use your own machines, or I use my machines to try to sharpen something. But I hope this gave you some insight as to what grooming shears are. They're not salon shears, so don't treat them as salon shears because you're going to end up, on the wrong hands sometimes. And your customer don't know anything, and they're going to be hollering at you, and if you don't know, you don't know what to do after that. This is Jeff with Northern Tail Sharpening. Hope this helped. You can always call us, 479-498-2367 if you got a question.
And thank you, Jeff, for your presentation. This was very informative. And I hope you stay on. In a moment, we'll be uploading some more things that have to do with the Sharpeners Jam 2020. Hey, and I suggest if you're watching this later, not during the live broadcast on Facebook streaming, if you're not a part of the facebook.com Sharpeners Jam group to watch the live streams and the playback videos. If you're watching in some other place, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Bonika Shears, so that you can watch the additional videos from the Sharpeners Jam 2020.